In the top right-hand side, our red Protoss from Ting. This is Neeb. As in the bottom left-hand side, the blue Terran player is INnoVation. A best of 5, so an INnoVation who's absolutely on fire, a Neeb who is looking amazing in this event specifically so far. Now, his PvT yesterday was, I wouldn't say shaky. He played against Soul and he took down Soul, a Soul who has just reached 7,000 MMR in Europe again. A Soul who's actually played really well recently, especially in PvT. I think Soul has actually been better than he would let on. You know, I think a lot of Terrans just naturally like to complain about TVP, but Soul's been very good in TVP, so Neeb winning that gives me a lot of hope that this is going to be great. But I feel like INnoVation's almost becoming the trap of last year, but the other way around, where everyone is like, oh my god, INnoVation's TVP is like the best in the business. And I'm not, and I'm like, it kind of is. Like, this guy is just deadly, and that's the word, deadly. INnoVation is this player right now in TVP. He will pull SCVs. He will one base. No, he won't one base you, but he will push you on 2 bases aggressively. He will take 3 bases and still pull the SCVs if he sees the opportunity to win. And that's what makes it so scary, because if you make a mistake, if you make a misplay, if you leave yourself open to a certain attack, the odds are INnoVation is going to find a way to take you down for it. And that's where this becomes very scary playing against INnoVation, because if he can waltz across the map and crack out a whole bunch of, you know, Marine Tank Banshee pushes, you know, Marine Tank Liberator pushes with a Widow Mine drop, this is going to be a very scary series for Neeb. And what Neeb needs to do, I think, is really survive the early game and get into a good mid-game position. And even then, INnoVation's mid-game is terrifying. His army usage is great, his drop play is amazing. But at that point, I think that's where Neeb gets into his own strength of this series, and he takes away some of the most scary parts of INnoVation's setup. Because I think INnoVation really enjoys just going into the mid-game, a bit of a lead off his early game, and he just dominates from that. And I said this yesterday, where I think INnoVation's TVP is at a point where if you talk about early and early mid-game Terran players, INnoVation's is the best TVP in the world. But if you get late game, I think there are other Terrans in Korea who you could argue have probably got a better late game TVP. You know, I would say, for example, TY is like the late game TVP player recently, and definitely one to continue watching for. And so, not necessarily, I'm not trying to say that INnoVation's TVP is weak late game, right? I'm not trying to say his late game is bad. I'm just trying to say he goes from being best in the world at one stage of the game to not, you know, a little bit of a more manageable opponent, perhaps. It's a weird one to try and explain, I suppose, to really try and say what I'm trying to say, I guess. But the Adept, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, at least then if Neeb gets to late game, he's not playing TY, right? As you do see this, Reaper gets away, 1 hit from death, takes 2 Adept shots and a Stalker shot. As we'll see, the Oracle is already chrono boosting out here from Neeb, so that's going to finish up. And it's going to move out across the map. So Stargate opener with an Oracle as well, especially. Now, of course, the Oracle now has that more frequent revelation, and that can be very good to help you against if your opponent opens like a faster armory for the Widow Mine drops. You can also have this setup where you can perhaps use the Oracle. It just kind of tracks things, right? If it's a Cloak Banshee opener, right, then maybe the Oracle is good there, and the Phoenix is then very good in that scenario. Phoenix in general are very good defensively early in the game, unless your opponent knows you're going for a Stargate, because the moment INnoVation knows it's a Stargate, then he sets up into a Viking, he gets a Cyclone, and then his first push across the map becomes really, really scary. Neeb's just going to get 3, 4 SCVs here, right from the beginning. Whoa, this Oracle, though, did a bit of a slide back into the main, or into the mineral line. That looked like for a moment that this Oracle was about to go down, but it doesn't. It gets away, it escapes up to the top left-hand side. It gets away and it gets out of there. As you do see, the Robo Facility is going to be finishing up shortly here from Neeb in the natural expansion. We do have the Oracle back around through the top side as our Nexus builds on the 3rd base of Neeb as well. So getting that all up and ready to go, as we have got 48 probes against 35 SCVs, and the 13 worker lead is a little bit more serious than what we kind of saw early, you know, what you're used to seeing earlier in the game. And as the Phoenix flying around, just going to be seeing the Sentry and the Stalker setting up on the natural. This probe is going to pull back away over to the right. And the Robo Bay just building in the main base from Neeb. So getting that Robo Bay up and running with the other few Marines here from INnoVation. They're going to move through and just sit out the front of the natural expansion. And he's just sitting back. So yeah, Neeb just going to go Phoenix into Colossus. And it's a very safe way to open it. Kind of respected so far. Doesn't really look to move across the map to deal any damage. He just goes 3 racks. Now, there's a lot of 3 racks openers here where... Or 3 racks follow-ups. It's not really a 3 racks opener, right? He goes 1-1-1 into the extra racks fairly quick without a 3rd CC. There's a lot of, there's definitely timings with this when you hit combat shields and +1 attack and that sort of stuff. That's definitely, definitely has a bit of an impact as the Bio Army from INnoVation will move out into the center. And the Phoenix here is going to be coming down to the bottom for the moment. So the Phoenix, very important the Phoenix aren't out of position, because the Phoenix add a lot to this. Lifting up Widow Mines during the fight, they can lift up the Marauders and take the, the anti-armor units away. Neeb is trying to build shield batteries, but he gets blocked a couple of times over by his own units. As well as some extra Stalkers, of course. These gateway units don't have any upgrades on them, so that's something to keep in mind in all of this. Phoenix don't find any trailing units. Oh my god, this Marine somehow runs around the Stasis Ward. He sees it now with the Raven here, so the Stasis Ward will just go down. Widowmine gets a Phoenix that took a few shots, so it was a one-shot kill. He has the Observer though, so this Widowmine will fall and continue to push through. This is going to be a next Widowmine, which will also go down. As the Phoenix up to the top side, going to continue coming back in. Nick gets a medevac. Matrix on the Colossus, but this is where you just want to back away. He's got the battery overcharge, and that should buy him the time he needs for this Colossus to come back online. I don't think INnoVation really breaks this before Neeb hits a second Colossus, and the second Colossus really does just shut this down. I mean, there's not that much left anyway. 3rd CC will start from INnoVation, a little bit off-center, so INnoVation, a little mistake there, an unforced error. As the Bio Army just collects up on the Watchtower, and this is where INnoVation's going to try and use his, multitasking to try and outposition and, outlocate Neeb on this map and to really harass him to death a little bit. A few Phoenix up on the top side. We've got the second Colossus just sat in the natural, though. Neeb's play is pretty good. If INnoVation really does try and drop through here, then maybe some problem. That was a big lag spike. Somebody is having some serious lag issues right now.
Game paused.
I'm not sure who it is. It looks as though it's our Chinese caster. So it looks like we are going to resume here, and we shouldn't have too many more issues for the moment. So go, and we're going to count down. INnoVation 3, 2, 1. HJP says 3, 2, 1 is a little bit slow. No, he just goes for the 3. What's going on? How much more play-by-play can I give on the... Oh my god, this is the slowest 2-1 ever. There we go, we are back as the Phoenix will get back into this again. This is like the 3, and everyone's like waiting. 2, 1, go! It's like you're trying to get like the head start on your opponent or something, right? When you're calling the start of your race. Well, Phoenix gonna lift up a lot of the Marauders in the frontier, try and take those out the fight. Matrix again on the Colossus. Definitely takes away one of the stronger points of this. Oh, I love this. The drop into this position. Colossus getting battery overcharge, stays alive. And that's massive because now you still have 2 Colossus in this fight. As we do see these Colossi coming through. We do have Extended Thermal Lance now finishing as well. This fight was without range. Now the Colossi are going to be that much safer. This was a good play by INnoVation because Neeb is completely positioned to deal with multi-pronged attacks and to deal with attacks in multiple directions. But what INnoVation does is he basically says, well, you're positioned everywhere. I'm going to make it look like you're positioned correctly and then actually drop in a way that means so that you're not actually positioned correctly at all. I take advantage of that. And then Neeb had a really good response and a really good handling of the situation. That's actually a really sick play between the two of them so far. Both of them playing a pretty good starting game of StarCraft here in the first game of this best of 5. A couple of shots off and Phoenix taking some damage. The Vikings and Bio units will help to push those Phoenix away. SCV is going down on the natural expansion. We do see the Anion Pulse Crystals is building on the Fleet Beacon. We do see our Forge is about to finish up in the main. All of these Phoenix from Neeb continue to gather up in the center of the map, and they're going to turn around and pick off this Marine. So Marine will fall. I'm just going to be seeing our Ghost Academy setting up on the natural expansion as well. As you see the rest of these Phoenix. I mean, look how many Phoenix he's got. He's actually, I mean, with Anion Pulse Crystals too, I was kind of just mentioning it, but now it's really sinking in just how much he's committing to the Phoenix. he really is playing like a Phoenix Colossus style, right? Like he never started Forges. Like it never really sank in because I feel like the Phoenix count we never saw it be this high together all at once. Yeah, this really is just full-on Phoenix Colossus. Disruptors to support, air weapons, and shield upgrades. And this generally transitions into extra Stargates and into carriers and, you know, a much later tier 3 Stargate tech game from Neeb. As you see, these Phoenix will come through. A couple shots off on a couple of those Vikings already to begin with here, and the rest of these Marauders are going to stem back out to the center. They're going to go after the Adept already. This first Adept already takes some shots. It will go down, and the Phoenix of Neeb are going to just go across. And this is the one thing he's not really done with the Phoenix, right? Pick off a lot of SCVs. You know, he's not really harassed much at all. I actually feel like that's really a shame because it's definitely, he's got so much energy, right? Like he doesn't need all of this energy for a fight. And this is one of the main strengths of playing like a Phoenix style like this, where you can just get rid of a ton of SCVs. You keep your opponent's economy low while having a very strong army of your own. You just lose a couple of Phoenix to these Vikings, but he mostly gets out of there unharmed. Maybe he wasn't. Hey, 9 workers. It's nice to do this without losing Phoenix. When you start losing Phoenix, bit of a different story. And there are the carriers I mentioned should be coming sometime soon, as Neeb is just progressing into a very comfortable late game here against INnoVation. INnoVation's army, right? It's Viking Ghost, but he needs more of it, right? He needs this extra starport. He's going to maybe even need to add a few libs into this. Libs do really well against the interceptors, for example. INnoVation's not really on the proper late game army. Like, INnoVation's like got an army that you go into like a true late game with, but Neeb's accelerating through into like proper late game. The only thing that's going to be missing is Storm, but he's not really using a composition that's going to rely on Storm or anything, really. And he's got Disruptors and Colossi, and that's going to do the job for him for the most part. I guess Storm eventually is just good anyway against the Vikings, right? You know, if you're playing this air army, then Storm is still just going to help you against air units that generally stack up and are not weak, right? But if they set an entire storm, that's more than half their HP. So I'd be surprised to see no Storm eventually, right? You know, given a much later game. I'm not surprised to see him just focus on the carriers right now, because for Neeb, this really is. I mean, he's maxed out now. When these carriers pop, does he do anything with that? It's kind of scary to move across the map with an army like this, because if you lose this army, you're in a lot of trouble, right? It's a lot of money invested into an army, which then, if it disappears, it's not reappearing anytime soon. And he's not in a position where he can really just warp in a whole bunch of extra, like, you know, you don't just be like, oh no, I need 4 more carriers again, and they just appear. And he's not in a position where he's just like, oh quick, the storms, let's get the High Templar out. Everything that Neeb's working on has a build time, and that makes it a little bit weaker if he loses everything to then rebuild up. So it's very scary for him to move across the map versus just him setting up more production, taking more bases, and saying to INnoVation, you fight into me. The only thing I would say about fighting across the map then on the other side of that argument is if you fight across the map, you know, the army dies here, and that gives you some extra seconds to rebuild before INnoVation's army is on top of your bases, right? So that's one way to look at it. Neeb does that on the Templar Archives now. Also the Dark Shrine harassment in this late game will obviously go a long way. We're just going to see a bit of a fight. Phoenix are just going to chase down Vikings here. I mean, EMP did come down, but it doesn't matter. The Phoenix are in just such high numbers, and INnoVation wants nothing to do with this army. He just keeps on running. Disruptor shots, though, going to go in for the bio, and man, those Phoenix have cleaned out a lot. INnoVation just lost his Viking count. He just lost every Viking he had down to 2 Vikings. 10 Vikings died. Well, what? Like, I mean, okay, the Phoenix count went down a little bit, but the Phoenix aren't even the big, you know, damage dealers in this one. The Phoenix are meant to be a buffer, and that's exactly what they did there. But even the Phoenix count didn't drop that much. He's only lost 7 Phoenix this game. Resources lost. Kind of tells you why Neeb is in such a fantastic position. These trades throughout the entirety of this game have just been all about Neeb. And this fight's going to be absolutely no different. You don't win this fight as INnoVation. You've got nothing to fight carriers. Absolutely nothing. I mean, the Colossi might go down, but these carriers are going to continue holding their ground. I'm actually surprised Neeb is getting broken down so heavily. He misses the recall on a carrier too. Wow. Okay, credit to INnoVation. He completely shocks me with this fight. This was not how I thought this fight was going to look. I guess just needed maybe a little bit extra on the ground. Maybe used all of the disruptors at once versus... It's tough to just send 1 or 2 forward at a time, though, with disruptors in this, because then you can just target fire down the disruptors that are causing you the issue. If you fire them all, you do just have to back away for that wave of disruptor shots. So I'm not against what INnoVation decided to do here with that battle. What Neeb decided to do there. But maybe that weakened him up a little bit. I mean, he's actually going to remax pretty much just fine. He did save enough of the carriers. And that's what I was really concerned about. If he loses all the carriers in this, maybe that's a big issue. I honestly didn't think that INnoVation was going to win that fight when there's no Vikings or anything. But yeah, he cleans out the ground army and enough Marines left over. And that's maybe where Storms come into play as well, right? Because the Storms really do keep those Marines away. They really do keep those Marines from just jumping in on this. And I was just going to be seeing the rest of this bio army continuing to move around the right-hand side. Phoenix and Neeb coming back along. Just going to lift up a Marine. Vikings, bio units, Ghosts all coming forward. We're going to see the Phoenix continue to fight. Vikings already taking some shots. I will stem up, and already a pylon going down. Just going to go through, and INnoVation is just going to run straight up into this main base. Obviously, there's no way out for this army, though. Like, the only way out is if these medevacs get you out of here, but that's going to be tough. I mean, these carriers are already picking off some of these medevacs, so this army's very committed. You don't have a recall or anything. Thing is, the position is great. What's this Disruptor going to do? Run all the way up the ramp and around the corner? The Storms are brutal, though, and INnoVation is going to lose so much here in the main. He's got an attack on this top side. How many cannons does Neeb have? Well, I can just count. So he has 7. He had 8. Battery overcharge as well, and all of a sudden, this army will do absolutely nothing. And there's a couple of Vikings in the background here that get cleaned out. This was not it from INnoVation. This looks scary. Like, he runs through. He's like, I'm going to kill all your tech units, all your tech structures, sorry. And Neeb's just like, no, you're not. I'm just going to kill you. And he actually got a few of the Disruptors because of the positioning. He didn't even need the Disruptors to fight it. He just had low ground Storms and the carriers. And now Neeb goes across the map against INnoVation, who's not had a chance to rebuild. And INnoVation's army feels like it's pure Ghosts here. And Ghosts are good for the initial EMPs, but are they going to put out that much damage against this? I guess we'll see very soon as our carriers continue to move along out down to the bottom side. So moving down to the south, and you see a pylon already dropping in from Neeb in the bottom right corner. Carriers actually just going to find a few units there. I didn't see what that quite was. I was looking at our pylon building next to INnoVation's base as Neeb is like, yeah, I don't think I really want you to have this. These carriers have +3 attack, and they are just going to murder anything these interceptors get. And maybe that was part of the issue earlier, that the carriers just didn't have all the upgrades they really wanted. Disruptor shots do get denied. I mean, INnoVation runs away from this Disruptor shot at least, but that's all you need, right? You push INnoVation back, he's running, the carriers are dealing damage while not taking any damage in that time. And he just plays it safe. He's just going to rebuild some Disruptors, add some more Tide Templar in. DT over here is having a great time. This Planetary Fortress finally finishes up, and it will just get the DT before the missile turret goes down. Again, the rest of this out over to the left side as INnoVation will push through with Ghosts and Bio units. EMPs across the carriers. Big Disruptor shot on all the Ghosts on the bottom side of this. The only thing I'd say is that these carriers need to get the interceptors maybe toward these Marines instead of on the couple of units that are on the left-hand side. But yeah, Neeb has enough to win this fight out, and Neeb is going to win a pretty spectacular game number 1 in this best of 5 against INnoVation. Neeb takes the lead. Bottom left-hand side, our blue Protoss player from Ting. This, up 1-0, is Neeb. And in the top right-hand side, our red Terran is INnoVation. All right, game 2 of the series. INnoVation, what do you do? The style of Neeb was frustrating to play against, and I really do just have to commend, though. Again, you remember that point where he dropped on the third base while pushing the top side? And he, like, created his whole army fighting Neeb's half army? That was so well handled by Neeb that I think that was almost the defining point, because then INnoVation loses quite a bit and gives Neeb a lot more freedom to do as he wishes. And that obviously really gave Neeb that advantage to eventually get to the point where he's comfortable already starting up carriers in this stage of the game. It's just going to be seeing our gateway from Neeb building in the main, and the probe moving itself across the map to the upper right-hand side to have a look to see just what's going on. As the probe moves up, Rax is going to finish. Just going to be seeing our Nexus is on the way down as well. Early game, obviously not too crazy here. Nice and chrome in case you're not familiar with this new map. A natural to a third base. Again, lots of choke points. There's obviously this base here you can take as your third instead if you want to go triangle, and that protects kind of the drop into this area of the main. There's a drop path over here, but it's not dead air space, really. You can't just sit here forever. There's not really dead air space between any of these, I think. I'm not even convinced a medevac sits here safely against stalkers, right? I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's very close, because this feels like that should be range enough for a stalker to kill a medevac, right? So I don't think there's a lot of dead air space in general on this map, apart from the very far bottom corners, which obviously isn't really where we usually talk about this. Look at Neeb. He's just going to go into a very fast Stargate here on this top side of the map. So Stargate will build. Gets this started already, and it's going to be a very quick proxy into this main base of INnoVation in the next few moments as the Stargate already building to try and be aggressive. Remember, Neeb last game at you at the Stargate opening did very well for himself. Picked up 5 SCVs, and you know, that was a start already that put Neeb into a good position in the last game as well, right? To then continue into the next steps of the game. We will see our Stargate will finish very soon as we have a starport in the main base. Wouldn't mind building on the factory. This mule pulls away and will go down. So the mule will fall. Stargate just going to be building this Oracle, but there's going to be Widow Mines this time from INnoVation, so Neeb has to be very careful with how he approaches this. He was quite careful with the Oracle last time, expecting a potential Widow Mine in the mineral line. If he plays this the same again now, this could still be okay for him, right? Like, as long as he just doesn't fly straight into this. You can fly into the Oracle, the Widow Mine zone if you're ready to pull back. You see you see the line and you pull away without setting the Oracle off. Let's see how Neeb, or setting the Widow Mine off. Yeah, he sees it, right? That was the lock on. He moves away to the side instantly. This next Widow Mine is going to get up. Neeb's out of range. And that leaves the natural expansion a little bit open where there are Marines. That's a good start. 3 SCVs, and he keeps the Oracle alive, rotates back around. The thing is now, do you really pick up these Widow Mines and take them across the map? INnoVation changes his decision as well. He goes into Viking Cyclone. And again, maybe now we see this push across where it says, hey, I can actually punish you if you try and take too fast of a third base, because you're going for a Stargate opener. Obviously, this should not be a Stargate opener that leads into Phoenix as well, though. Okay, it's going to be 1 Phoenix. 1 Phoenix can be really good if you fight against, like, a Cyclone, because then you can lift up the Cyclone and still, you know, do damage with the Oracles. I'd be surprised if this was a lot of Phoenix, because it's very difficult to... Well, it can be, like, a few Phoenix, right? Like, up to, like, 3 to 5, but you can't just build a massive Phoenix like you did in the last game of a Stargate on this top side. You know, the more Phoenix you try and go, the more ridiculous that kind of becomes. So this should be a different style from Neeb as a follow-up here overall. INnoVation sees this right now as the Oracle gets locked onto. The medevac actually keeps providing vision. And that's one of those moments where the Phoenix was kind of meant to go and lift up the Cyclone to help save the Oracle. That's a nice little play from INnoVation. But now his natural expansion is barren. There's a low health SCV there. He's going to run out of energy on the Oracle before he gets the one that started up on a depot. And now INnoVation comes across the map. So here comes our attack to try break down a third. But shield battery building. And when that is done, we've got a battery overcharge available as long as Neeb doesn't spend the chrono boost on this third nexus. So as long as he doesn't spend that chrono, and Neeb isn't too worried about it. He's building a Robo Bay as well. So he's really in a lot of belief that he can defend this here. There's also a Widow Mine drop to the natural expansion. So now Neeb's army is split up. I'm worried for Neeb about this attack coming over. He is gonna... Oh, he probably could have had the medevac already, but he changed his mind a couple of times. Now he's gonna lose a Stalker and 2 probes. Well, battery overcharge really is important here, as it's a big connection initially. I think you have to battery overcharge. There's not really 2 ways about it. But this army is already very strong. Here we go. Adepts are gonna shade through. You also have to kind of go before there's a second siege tank, right? There's no way you do this with a second tank. Lifts up the tank for a few moments here, takes a few shots away from this. Immortal dives in for the tank, will not get it. INnoVation has too much. And this was the one push that you've always got to be so careful about when playing Stargate. And yeah, obviously the Widow Mines and the natural pulled units out of position as well. Gave INnoVation the chance to get sieged. And INnoVation will tie us up 1-1 in the best of. Game number 3 of the series, we have in the top left-hand side our blue Terran player. This is INnoVation. Up against our red Protoss. In the bottom right, let's hear it for Ting's Neeb. As we have a game 3 on our hands, tied up 1-1. the best kind of game 3 you can get, guys. You don't get much better than that. It don't get much better than that. As we get this underway and I look to see just how this one will open. This is absolutely kind of like a tank push kind of map, right? This is absolutely a map which has the right sort of size for a tank push. It's, you know, a third base where you can put tanks kind of behind a choke point or tanks up on a high ground. Not quite a hit the base, but hit to where, you know, the units have to come forward to defend. So a lot of potential here for this one to go into a little bit of a later stage setup or so. As we get ourselves into this round of action. Cybercore opening as well, and obviously the initial unit can cross the map very quickly as well. Command center onto the natural, as you see the probe coming back out into the bottom right hand side. So the Nexus getting set up, the assimilator will be dropping down, just going to be seeing the Adept Chrono boosting out, and the SCV is going to be coming across. Factory setting up, about halfway done, as we do just have ourselves the Stalker. And what will Neeb do for the early game here, indeed? It's actually interesting. INnoVation chooses to go no Reaper, right? And maybe that's partly because of the threat that the initial Adept imposes. Imagine this is a Reaper. This Adept shows up right now. You have a really tough time here. But against 3 Marines, the Adept is going to have a really hard time doing much. In fact, the Adept nearly goes down because he wandered straight into it. Going to threaten the Shade through into the natural. Doesn't quite commit there in the end, of course. Why would you? But he wants to force the Marines to pull back just in case, you know, if the Marines do continue chasing the Adept, maybe you can justify the Shade. But yeah, just going to disengage the Marines from the Adept. And now a Stalker coming up as well. Neeb even started a second Stalker, which sort of says, hey, like, I actually want to keep on pressuring. He already has a Twilight down. And then he goes into the Robo as well. So he can start Blink, but he hasn't started it yet. He'll get it now, just needs the 150 gas. Then into the Robo before the gateways. That gives you a bit more opportunity to get an Observer and a Prism if you want to be very aggressive with this. And maybe even add a 4th gateway on, so that's got some potential. I mean, even with 3 gateways, right, the Robo kind of gives you... It's kind of weird, right, because like it kind of feels like it should be the other way around, but nowadays getting the Observer and the Prism so you can make the right blinks actually gives you more aggression than just going in 2 extra gateways earlier. It doesn't look like Neeb's going into a 4th gate, I say, as he just drops it down. Well, it was borderline the time for it, right? So there we go, 4th gateway, so we will see it. And yeah, that Robo first nowadays is just because the aggression relies on you having the Observer, because you need to know what you're blinking into. A big part of this then from INnoVation would be if you can deny this Observer early, makes that attack then from Neeb that much more difficult. So the way that this blink works with 4 gateways is you are very committed on it, and you're not going to move out from blink 4 times, so it is important you take a lead off this into a later 3rd base and into then a Robo Bay and so on. And you want to be teching up before the Terran has any real freedom to get out on the map against your Stalkers, because if the Terran gets out on the map any earlier, you're generally going to be in trouble. As this is going to be target fire in the medevac, the Widow Mines will burrow up. Goodbye probe number 1, probe number 2, and these Widow Mines are absolutely not going to have a chance to get lifted into a medevac and saved and brought into this again. As you see, this Widow Mine will go down. So a couple of Widow Mines killed already, as we'll see the Siege Tank about halfway along here from INnoVation. So tank about halfway through. The War Prism of Neeb still out into the center and heading to the top left-hand side. The Stalkers will go blink down, and that's going to be a dead medevac in the end. For a second, I was like, watch, he blew up there. I wasn't sure. Alright, Libera is going to come around and just going to be seeing a couple of Stalkers backing away. Man, there's nothing on the natural, so this is going to be a weird base trade where INnoVation, he's going to lose a Siege Tank right away. Obviously, both players just get into the natural of their opponent. Does INnoVation just have a way to save his natural because of the float, and is that just going to be that much better? The thing is, Neeb sees the main base, right, and he sees there's nothing really here just yet. The siege tank comes out, he blinks straight on for it. You can't let the siege tanks get up, because then you're in too much trouble. Now you've blinked into the main SCV's pull. Problem is, Neeb's army is not great against SCVs. It takes a long time to kill them. INnoVation's army just goes into the main. He's going to recall now Neeb, but he lost 29 workers versus the 11. Okay, the only way I really see this really working out for Neeb is if he then counters and he can do a lot. I think he lost too many stalkers trying to clean up this army even. And INnoVation's little move across the map, this little base trade, works out very well here for himself, and he takes game map. I think Neeb underestimated his ability to deal with that army of INnoVation, and that underestimation just cost him the game just like that. Top right-hand side, down a map now. It is our blue Protoss Neeb up against the red Terran in the bottom left side. It's INnoVation. Nah, that was pretty sick, but honestly, I mean, he made it work, but I feel like maybe it's more Neeb's mistakes than Inno's brilliance this time around. There's so many ways this could have gone, right? There's just so many ways that this could have gone. All right, well, alas, it is done with, and we go into game number 4. No need to worry ourselves about that last game now, unless it happens again, right? I mean, obviously, there is still some, it's still worth thinking about, because there are absolutely scenarios here where, you'll make different decisions based on what happened in the previous game. So don't forget about it completely, but for the moment, let's put it aside and talk what could happen on Everdream. Obviously, I feel like there's not a bad one for the Widowmine drop, Liberator play. You can, Widowmine here, and that threatens the natural and the potential third. And then you have the Liberator into the main, so that when you push the third, you can either reinforce with the Widowmines, or you can drop the Widowmines in the natural, and then your Marine tank at the third base becomes very powerful. That's one of the builds INnoVation's been using a lot lately, so it gives them a lot of options. It just gives you a lot of... It's a very good build to transition out of as well. You're not just stuck all in on, the Marine tank push. And it really is a difficult one for the Protoss to hold, but it's also one that the Protoss are very familiar with, so it's also one that they've had a lot of practice against, and that doesn't necessarily mean Neeb would hold it every time, but it does mean that it wouldn't be... it just maybe come... That can have something of an effect on it as well, basically, is all I'm trying to say. As you will see, the Adept coming through is just going to go and out down onto the bottom side. Just going to Chrono Boost this out. And you see the SCV of INnoVation continuing down to the bottom left. So just moving this along. Factory is building in the main base, and just going to have a couple of Marines continuing out as well. And just going to see the bunker at the front. So this time bunkering at the front, but without a Reaper. So again, kind of reactor expanding. Doesn't go for the Reaper, but he'll have a bunker just to help himself out. These Marines are here to greet the Adept initially. The Adept takes a few shots of damage, and then the Marines can go in the bunker. Maybe just a bit afraid of what the Stalker could do if it came across the map as well. Because, of course, when there's no Reaper, right, that's the issue. You don't have anything to keep units from the Protoss player back at home. If the Reaper's out, then at least you have to keep something at home as the Protoss. Neeb will bring the Stalker across, but again, against the bunker, don't really see what you do. And this time, Neeb does build the second Stalker as well. He cancelled this last time around, but this time he doesn't go for the Robo as quickly. He just starts Blink right away, and he's going to put a Chrono into it. So Neeb's just going to get Blink up and play with Blink from the very early stages, as we do have our Stalker and Adept hanging around and dealing some damage. Robotics facility from Neeb will build on the natural expansion also here, so getting the Robo up on the natural. The Warp Gate is going to be finishing on the Cyber Core very soon. And we do see just the Raven continuing to build in the main base. Adept, Stalker continuing to build up. A couple of extra gates going to drop down on the natural expansion. So all of these gates are going to build up. Length about halfway along. And the Stalker and the Adept of Neeb just going to go back up to the upper right-hand side. Couple of mules from INnoVation drop into the natural, and his build is going to be Raven base, so you'll have the Raven and a siege tank. And it's going to be Neeb going up to 3 gates again, up to 4 gates here now again. Just going to see these extra gates continue to come through. Blink will finish, and the War Prism is continuing to set up. Banshee is just going to be about halfway along here. Siege Tank is building. Again, the Blink just going to be finishing on the Twilight Council. So again, that Blink finished up. As you see, the Siege Tank is just coming up to being about halfway along. Command Center will build at the front, the UCC. Already setting down. So INnoVation not really looking to be... Well, he is looking to be aggressive. This is actually the fake 3 base into SCV pull, right? Yeah, against this amount of Stalkers as well, though, right? This is 4 gates. So here we go. Observer gets here. The Stalkers all coming across. He's going to deny this SCV. I mean, this base just dies. You can't keep this base alive unless you reposition the tank. Reposition the tank's kind of scary. The Observer... Where was the Observer? Observer wasn't here because of the Raven. That's actually pretty sick, because if the Observer was... The Raven... This is very smart. If INnoVation moves and the Observer can see it, then obviously this is very bad. Because then it gives, you know, freedom to just blink into the main base and kill that Siege Tank, right? But now it's a little bit different. These Stalkers will go a bit of a different way around, and yeah, NO sees the movement across to the side. Up into the main base. Problem is, Neeb hasn't gotten rid of any Siege Tanks yet. He has to get rid of this one. Even getting rid of this one is kind of costly because he tries to target the Raven as well. Raven survives, but there's still 2 Siege Tanks up. More Stalkers warping in. He'll get the Raven. It's a nice pick. 2 Banshees just go across the map here as INnoVation. I feel like he's starting to be overrun. A new Siege Tank in the main. That is actually just the one from the natural relocated. But these Banshees across the map are going to be the real telltale sign of how this game goes, because if they can get a bunch of workers, this becomes very different. SCVs continue to fall, the Marines continuing through. A lot of Stalkers are going down. It's a lot of dead Stalkers. It's into the main base. Banshees trying to kill probes. They're just being healed up by the... They're out of sync. That's the issue. The shield battery shouldn't have bought this much time against just against 2 Banshees. The shield battery shouldn't be able to do anything, but a little bit out of sync because INnoVation's worried about what's happening on his side of the map. Going to be seeing the couple of Marines going down. The whole command center going to be repaired a little bit. Two Banshees just in the upper right, and obviously, oh, why is this probe attacking a Stalker? What's going on here? Yeah, the Banshees are still a threat then, even if they don't have Cloak. INnoVation building another. Big thing is, though, INnoVation is just without any upgrades here still. Like, he has no stim, he has no combat shield, not even starting, not even tech labs. He's just massing Marines. This will allow him to deal with these Stalkers very well. Neeb sees this as well, though, right? And I think if you look at this as Neeb, you're like, well, this is just going to be one massive push eventually. And if you know this is just one massive push, surely you're somewhat prepared for it. Here you go. Marines are going to move out the tank as well. This third base obviously still will not move in position. Kind of surprised the third hasn't at least tried to morph into an orbital out, though. Right? I mean, that's how much of a fake this is. INnoVation doesn't even care that he doesn't have an orbital as the third. There's the SCV pull I talked about a little bit earlier. Obviously, it's been delayed by the Stalker attack. Neeb has the first Colossus out, and that's going to be huge. Only 2 Siege Tanks. But the Banshee counts at 5. You're going to have to babysit this Colossus. Neeb, first shield battery building on the third. Stalkers come through. I mean, at this point, he knows everything that's coming his way. Dealing a few more damage to Marines, a bit more damage to Marines here. If you can get some damage from the Colossus on Marines as they move up this ramp, that splash obviously goes a long way. But this is where the Banshees start to deal a lot of damage as well. Neeb continue to pull back. A few more Stalkers warping in. The Banshees in the main are handled. They will not do much. Stalkers blink. They get the first Siege Tank. Colossus now should be away. Colossus, get away. Yeah, battery overcharge as well. Well, actually, maybe battery overcharge wasn't needed, but it is nice to get everything back to health quickly. Next Colossus is out. No Colossus range building at all. This Banshee in the back goes down. Neeb is just going to go before bunkers are ready. It's still only 1 Siege Tank, and that's going to be the problem as well for INnoVation. This attack will not work out. The Colossi will clean up. Marines and SCVs falling everywhere, and this is going to be INnoVation pushing through to clean house. Banshees going down. Tanks and Marines going down. That's going to be GG, and Neeb is going to take game number 4, and we go to a game 5 in this best of 5 series. Starting us off in the top left-hand side in the blue from Ting. This is Neeb, tying it up to bring us to game 5. As he is fighting the red Terran in the bottom right. we do, of course, have INnoVation. There's multiple games in a row now, just continued to stick to his Marine, Tank, Banshee kind of style. So it's continually tried to set up for that, and has had a mixture of, well, it's kind of okay for him. It's also had moments where it's not been as great for him. Rax is going to drop down as we get this started. It's just getting the Rax beginning in the early stages and seeing where we're going to go. Oh, double gas from INnoVation. Ooh, so INnoVation's going to go factory before he expands. So a little bit of a different approach here from INnoVation in the early stages, as we do see the depot will drop down from Inno as well. That means he wants to get aggressive off this initial base, or just a bit more aggressive in general, right? Let's see what happens then. As Rax about to finish up. Reaper is going to be starting on the Rax as the probe. Coming across the left side. Factory building in the main base from INnoVation. And as the probe comes up around the top and moving around, seeing where it can go to. Making sure there's no proxy here, because obviously Neeb, it's kind of a weird one. Like, INnoVation is going to end up, you know, being on one base here, and Neeb's not going to know about it. So Neeb's actually checking for proxies. He doesn't actually pick up what is pretty important information, basically. So that's a little bit rough, as we do see the Stargate building from Neeb in the main base. So already getting that up and running here. Yes, Reaper will continue up the left-hand side. He's going to hop into the main. Stargate going to be finishing up then in the main in just a few moments, as just going to be seeing the Nexus on the natural setup as well. I'm just going to see our Reaper out the front. Still waiting. I mean, there's the expansion from INnoVation. It's just going to be like a faster mine drop than usual in the end then. So, a faster mine drop, I mean, you also build double Reaper though. And by going double Reaper, you also put yourself in a position where you slow yourself down a little bit, right? Because now you are not, you know, now you do use some of that gas that could have otherwise already been on, you know, the factory. And then that roto mine drop really being that much faster. Yeah, it's an interesting start. Neeb attacks his own Nexus when these units run in though. And the two Reapers and the Hellion together do make quite the force to begin with. The Phoenix here will lift one of these Reapers as well. And that takes away some of the damage for a while, but you've still got the Reaper in the main to worry about. I am actually worried about this one dropping down. I don't think you get the kill on that. That's a little bit messed up there from Neeb. Didn't maybe make the most of it. That's going to be a... well, that's going to be a tied-up scenario. Well, a 4 workers killed in this tied-up scenario of 2-2. You know, decent damage, but remember he delayed the command center for this, right? His orbital only just now finishes. I was just going to be seeing the Reaper back through the top. Reaper all the way up to the natural. The Adept's going to get rid of the Reaper there and just going to be seeing 2 gateways. And now the Phoenix continue to produce from Neeb in the main. These 2 Phoenix already heading down the bottom side. There's a few Marines in the natural just hanging out. Viking and a Cyclone from INnoVation, of course. He sees this as a Stargate early, so it does bring you to that point where it's very scary for Neeb to try and take the third, because then this push of INnoVation can be very, very scary. Right? Can definitely cause some issues. Viking tank continues up. We will see the Phoenix continue out down to the bottom. A couple of SCVs go down as the Phoenix fly in themselves. Now we'll see with the Phoenix count. I do feel like if there's a way to fight these sort of attacks, Phoenix count being high is definitely one of the ways to do it. As we'll see, there's just going to be a recall. Wow, he just wants to get back in this main base to help deal with this Widow Mine drop. Lifts up both of them. That's a really nice lift. And now these units are going to be here to deal with the rest. The Phoenix goes straight to kill the medevac as well. Make sure that will not get back to the army. This is really doing a good job of this. So this is just going to shut down everything. However, this medevac continues to boost. So now the Phoenix are out of position to deal with this main fight, which is coming across. Gonna see our units from Neeb. Just gonna continue through and just gonna be seeing a force field dropping down. Tank is gonna fire a couple of shots off already as the depth gets taken down. Vikings land, Marines and a cyclone continue through. Third Nexus will set up. As the few adepts are just gonna shade in, just gonna be trying to threaten. I mean, they're not gonna go yet. There's not an immediate need to attack. Well, Neeb. The problem is he's kind of let this position happen because the Phoenix weren't there to kind of jump on this early. He's got an Immortal out now. No battery on this third base until a couple more seconds. That's what he's waiting for at this point, right? Waiting for this battery to be up. Battery is very important, I think, to help fight this. But the third will go down, so now you don't have battery overcharge. Neeb just re-expands to the left side instead very quickly. Still two Phoenix across the map, which I find... I guess they're trying to pick off reinforcements. They find a Marine. This Army of INnoVation will go elsewhere. Neeb would really want to make sure that this doesn't get set up anywhere else at this stage, right? So, trying to set up with this. A few extra Zealots already warping in from Neeb as we do see the force fields dropping down and the Army starting to move forward there. Does take a couple of tank shots. Definitely scary as well. This third base not finished yet. The Phoenix left AFK a little bit. Neeb's struggling to clean this out, right? And the longer this goes on, the more time INnoVation has to just set up his own third, get his own bio upgrades going. The more chaos INnoVation can cause with this kind of Viking tank Marine army, the better position he's going to be in for all the rest of it. There's a little bit, it was a little bit weird game, right? I mean, you don't usually see this attack still on the map without, straight up killing the Protoss. Neeb's decision to just re-expand to the left-hand side is what makes this so interesting, I think. Because I think if you don't kind of just re-expand over to the left side, obviously then you lose the third and you eventually force into a fight or something. He just chose to give that base on the right up so quickly. Phoenix trying to get a couple of extra kills towards the end here, and they are going to grab a couple of Marines that are on the tail end of the army trying to move away. Oh, this is really annoying too. 5 Vikings are just landing your mineral line. Probes are going to get shredded. Vikings are ridiculously good against probes. That's 7 workers in an instant. Neeb responded not super quick, right? Like, you could have seen these Vikings sooner on the minimap. Hey, now the Vikings are going to end up fighting these Phoenix. That's going to be interesting. The Phoenix have one of the Vikings lifted initially as well. And there's kind of a trade-out as Neeb is going across the map. Neeb, if he can hit before Stim Combat 1-1, all those upgrades, this could be really good for him. But it's against so many siege tanks as well that that in itself is going to be something of a problem. The Warlock from INnoVation, very smart because it will help a lot against the charge. Okay, this is it now. This is basically where we see how this is going to play out. Do or die for Neeb as he moves in. I just don't... Okay, well, the tanks aren't actually protected by Marines on the left side, so the initial Phoenix lifts are pretty good to buy some time. Neeb... Well, now Stim finishes. Now 1-1 finishes as well. All these upgrades finishing during the fight. An extra round of Zealots. There's only really siege tanks left. The bio count is definitely dropping as Neeb continues to bust on through. Tanks will continue to fall. Does Neeb have enough? I mean, he's gotten rid of 23 SCVs here, so it's a big eco damage. Another round of Zealots, and the reinforcing Zealots might just make the difference in all of this. A couple of Zealots will continue to kill SCVs on the third, and it is a very choked up area, this natural expansion. Maybe another warp in, maybe of not just Zealots, but maybe even take a time to warp in a couple extra High Templars and get some Archons up again. He's just going to finish up these depots to the left-hand side. I mean, this might just be enough of a lead for him anyway. Right, this might just be a good enough a start. No matter what. Another round of units just warping in. Just going to be seeing that +2 armor finishing up or coming up on the forge. And Robobid just continuing to build up there. The forge setting up as well. And we do see the Prism of Neeb back down to the bottom left-hand side. This army gathers up again from Neeb right now. A few extra Stalkers and a Zealot. That's going to be setting up as well. T2 upgrades on the way. +2 armor is going to be finishing. And see now Robo Bay finishing from Neeb in a few moments' time as the Blink is on the way on the Twilight Council. And Neeb has made this work out for more than I expect. I really wasn't sure about this fight, right? Like, the depots, this amount of tanks. But he was able to take some of the tanks out of that fight for such a long time. The Phoenix lifts there were really valuable. And that really takes away some of the damage. And then, yeah, just not having Stim until like halfway through, right? And a lot of the Marines did die before Stim was done. It was really like clutch from Neeb. Like 10 seconds later, if that fight starts, I think he gets crushed from start through to finish. And it's not even a talking point. We're kind of like looking at each other like, what's Neeb doing? I mean, now the game's set up, so Neeb's only 6-ish workers ahead. That's actually not too crazy for TVP. Upgrades are going to be even-ish, right? It's going to be 2-2 versus 3-1 in the future, so pretty much, 4 upgrades each. Neeb obviously now going into Colossi as well for his next stage of this. And we kind of go into like a mid-game TVP, obviously from a very weird spot with how this game played out, but mid-game TVP that does have possibility and does have potential. A couple of Zealots will go to the right side. Just going to be seeing the Zealot from Neeb going to run in, and it's going to be a dead Marine here right from the start. This Marine goes down as well. We do have the Enhanced Shockwave still just coming through on the Ghost Academy. A couple of extra Zealots jump in there as 4 SCVs go down. I like the Prism play. Obviously just harassing around, and some Zealots over here too, right? This keeps INnoVation busy, and for Neeb, he's just wanting to, get set up into a more comfortable spot with more Colossi. He had some Stalkers in. Well, apparently he even wants to take position out on the map, which that just means that obviously these sort of attacks are the sort of things that do keep INnoVation back then. I mean, this is where INnoVation should be punished quite heavily for this Warp Prism. If this goes, drop in the bay third and then warp into the natural, this is extremely frustrating to deal with. Neeb takes a couple of EMPs, so he just runs back away from this. Again, he doesn't really need to take a straight-up fight. If these Zealots are just going to do so much across the map, just let the Zealots do their damage. I don't think Neeb needs to be pushing for the fight here. Now he loses his force fields. This is bad for Neeb. This is really bad for Neeb. He loses his force fields. The EMPs go over everything. He gets back up here. He's already popped the battery overcharge to get himself back in control. Zealot's still running around everywhere. Main base, I mean, INnoVation's basically not mining, but Neeb must defend this attack. The EMP's already dropping in on an Archon that's already starting to morph. Good thing is the Colossi can fight from a distance behind everything else, and Neeb, well, Colossi now getting jumped on. The Marauders will chase. Neeb can get one of them to the high ground. Couple of Immortals here trying to fight the Marauders off. Neeb needs some warp-ins at home. A lot of Neeb's army supplies across the map, killing the third base. Picking off every single reinforcement that spawns, sure. And INnoVation's not going to give him time to set up here. Probes are going to try and pull into this. Neeb does not have a way to hold. He has too many units across the map. And that's going to be INnoVation winning an epic Game 5. Wow. This was so very close, though. At the very end, INnoVation just takes